If you're a fan of Creality Print, great news. Creality has just released a new version of their self-developed slicer, Creality Print 5.0. It's currently only available for Windows right now, with the Mac and Linux versions becoming available in the near future. It is also limited to a few specific printers, with more coming later. Now, if you choose to download and use Creality Print 5.0 during this initial release, don't be surprised if you experience an occasional glitch. Creality Print 5.0 is still being developed and updates can be pushed to your computer. More on that later. Now, if you're still of the mindset that Creality Print is nothing but a rebranded version of Cura, well, simply put, you would be wrong. In fact, it hasn't been that way for quite some time. You would have to go all the way back to at least 2021 when it was still called Creality Slicer. This self-developed version of Creality Print sports a whole new user interface and printer profiles that are finely tuned for Creality printers. Creality Print 5.0 is definitely worth checking out, and that's exactly what we're going to do. This video is sponsored by PCBWay. If you're looking for parts beyond the capabilities of your printer, visit PCBWay's 3D Printing Gateway. Just upload your file and choose from their large collection of filaments and take your project from prototype to production. From PCBs to 3D printing, look to PCBWay.com for unmatched precision. Visit them today at PCBWay.com. All right, let's get started. We'll start with downloading Creality Print 5.0. There are two ways of doing this. I'll go through both methods. Then we'll do the initial install and setup. I'm Bill, and this is Pushing Plastic. Okay, so the first way to download Creality Print 5, it's the easy way. If you already have Creality Print 4.3.8 loaded, just come up here to the help button on your menu at the top, click on that, click on update, and you'll see this message that a new version is available, and there it is. Go ahead and click yes, and that's going to take us right to a download. We can hit the save as, and I'm going to save it into downloads, my downloads folder. You want to save this somewhere where you can easily find it. That's all there is to it. Now the second method is equally as easy. If you don't have Creality Print already loaded, or you just don't feel like going through Creality Print to do it, go to crealitycloud.com. You want to go to the downloads and then software. You'll come to all the available software, click on Creality Print for the FDM slicer. And right at the top of the list, you'll see V5.0.0.8636. Go ahead and give that a click to start your download. Again, save that somewhere where you know where it'll be. And just go ahead and save it. Once your file is done downloading, you can go ahead and click on Open File. And that will start the install process for you. All right, so you're given a welcome screen. Let's go ahead and install this. We'll click on Next. I agree, because I agree to all things 3D printing. Well, almost all things. I agree. I'll accept the location. I have quite a few slicers going. I have Orca, I have Cura, I have Bamboo, I have my earlier version of Creality Print. These don't mean a whole lot to me anymore, so I'm just accepting them as they are, and I'll go ahead and click Install. And once your install is finished, if you want to run it immediately, just leave the checkbox up here marked, click Finish, and that'll launch Creality Print for us. So this is our initial look at Creality Print. We have to run through the setup. It's pretty easy. Let's go ahead and do that. My language is English. Maybe not the best English, but it's English. My locale, North America. So I'll click that and hit OK. Now this is where you would set up your printers. I have currently a K1 Max. I have a few enders. Unfortunately, none of the enders I have appear in this list. I'm just going to go ahead and set up for the K1 Max for now, and they will. Creality is still putting updates out, so there will be more printers to follow. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And that's really all there is to the setup. But what you do want to do is come up here and click on the little gear. Up here at the top of the screen, click on that, and there's a checkbox, a little box here. You want to add a check to that. Push parameter package updates. So anytime Creality puts out an update, it'll push right through to your computer. Well, it'll ask you if you want to install first, like it did down here in the bottom right corner. Tell me there's a new package update. Do I want to update it? I do. So I'm going to click update now, but nothing happens. You'll want to close this box out first. Close that out. Give this a click, and it's showing me what it found. And I'm going to go ahead and update it. And that's all there is to it. It was that quick. Well, I do want to check one thing. I want to check to see if there's new printers added or not. And I am not seeing any new printers in the Ender series. That's okay. I know they're coming. But that, for the most part, that's all there is to set up your printers. If you want to set up your Creality Cloud account, you'll come over here, click on the Creality logo, come down to Model, and right here is where you start. This here would take you to their library. A couple out of download manager. You click that, it'll take you back to the model library. You come to my model. This is where you'll have to enter your Creality information for your Creality Cloud account. So go ahead and do that if you want to. I'll do mine here in a little bit. As we saw, the install and setup was pretty straightforward and easy to do. Let's go ahead and jump back into Creality Print 5.0 and take a look at the new user interface. Okay, at a first glance at the user interface system, the first thing I want to say is, wow, nice change. I like the fact that we have our toolbar going across the top instead of down the side. I don't know why, I just could never get used to the toolbar coming down the left-hand side of the screen. So let's take a real quick look at some of the features, not a lot of them, but as many as we can in a short amount of time. Your printer, you can go ahead and close this out, or you can go ahead, if you want to change your printer to another one you already have installed, or if you want to add a printer, that's where you do it. I'm going to close that out. If you need to get back to it, you just click the printer button. So here we can import models. The next one over is add plate. I really like this one. Every time you click it, you're going to get another print plate. So if you have a large assembly with multiple parts and you want to set them all up in one sitting, you can go ahead and do that. Whichever plate is highlighted, that's the plate that you're currently working on. If you want to get rid of the plates, you just simply click on the X and that'll get rid of them for you. So I'm going to close them all out, and when I want to get back to my home view, I simply come up near the cube and click on the little house button, means go home, for lack of a better sense. A lot of these tool buttons we had at the top, we've had before. They have a little bit of a different look to them, like the pick bottom rotate. We have scale, mirror, clone, hollow. We can now print hollow objects, drill through, we can add text. We can split the model. This one is nice. We have paint on supports now, which is great. And we have a paint on seam. So if you want to control your Z seam a little bit better, that's where you do it. This last button is also great. That's your adaptive layers. It used to be tucked in with the slicer settings. It's up here now. It's more convenient. Give it a shot. Now we're going to jump over to the slicer settings real quick. And we're coming down, you'll notice we only have 5 categories. What Creality did was they kind of bundled them, group them together, the ones that are most commonly used together, like your layer height, your seam position, everything that would be under the quality settings. Then we have strength, which would be your walls, your infill, your top layers, your bottom layers, all that. We have all of our speed settings are grouped together. Our support settings are, if you have them enabled, are all grouped together. And other, for like anything that just fell into different categories. We'll talk about the other in just a few minutes, but let's go back through real quick. Going back to quality. If you really want to control your slicer settings, to the right of the word object, just click this icon. It looks like it's 3 slider bars. Go ahead and give that a click, and bam, you have access to more than you could ever hope for to change your slicer settings. And that didn't just happen for quality, strength, your speed. We just opened up ourselves to a whole new world of what we can change. Our support, so we enable supports, and we got all kinds of good settings on there. And the same thing with other. Now here, under other, we have our bed adhesion. And I believe this is where we keep our fuzzy skin and a few other ones. But most notable is you're going to find a prime tower and fleshing options. Now what these are, they're for when the K2 is available, multicolor printing. And speaking of the multicolor printing, we'll get to that up here. You see the material. The CFS, which is the Creality filament system, will hold up to 4 spools of filament. You can connect 4 of them up to each other for a total of 16 colors. But what you do when you want to add them, you just click this add button. And you can control these by picking on the color, selecting the filament color you're going to put in there, and not just the color, but the type. So right now it's set for the Hyper PLA. So let's just say we bought the Hyper PLA with the RFID. You can go ahead and add that. Maybe you have some generic PLA you're going to mix in there. You can go ahead and add those. Last one, I'm just going to leave it Hyper PLA. This first one, I started working on a profile, doing like a temperature tower, flow test, things like that. So I already start working up a material profile for that. And maybe I want that in slot number 1. Now, the other cool thing you'll see is the temperature, the print temperature, and the bed temperature. And as I click across to the different materials, you'll notice that they change to match whatever the temperature is for that. If you want to get rid of those, don't click color, just come up here and click the minus button, which is delete. And now we're back to where we were. Another cool feature is the compare setup, our presets. So I already, like I said, I was already working on a profile for myself. And I was doing it for the machine, and I was doing it for material. So I started with the machine from the standard 0.2 millimeter to what I normally use for my settings, which I use 4 walls, 6 tops, 6 bottoms. That's my defaults. And right here, it's telling me over here, my standard. And this here would be this is the machine standard. This is my standard over here. You can do the same thing with your material. I start building a profile based off the generic PLA. And what I made my changes to is the freemover.net. I want to come up here. Well, they moved my machine changes down here. And I'm not actually liking what I see here. I found another bug. It's showing the same machine name, even though I know that's not true. I should have on the left, this should say 0.20 millimeter standard, period. It shouldn't have the K1 Max at the end. Doesn't matter. I know what I'm looking at. But going up to my filament, the changes I made were in my flow ratio. I've increased it from 0.95 to 1.063. I enabled pressure advanced. That's the 0 versus 1. That's just the simple checkbox setting. And the pressure advanced setting, I went from 0.02, which was their default, to the 0.44. So where this will come in handy is if you're trying to debug one of your profiles that you're working on. You can compare it with
something you know is working. Like maybe you're using the generic or the hyper PLA from Creality, or a friend of yours sends you a profile that they swear is great, and you tried the same settings and they're not working. So you want to compare what else is possibly missing in there. Like one of the things I found out, and I believe it was under my strength, was it under other? I have a wall set of my Arachne setting or slicing mode. I don't think it's here. Anyways, I'll have to go back and change that. Is typically I make sure that I am printing in Arachne mode, not classic. And I think this might be defaulting to classic. Just can't remember where it is. It must be under quality. Would make sense to me. Yes, here it is. The wall generator. It defaults to classic. I want to keep that to Arachne, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this again. And it's telling me I already have a profile with this name. I'm going to be overwriting it. I say, good, overwrite. So now when I compare and we look at our settings, it's not showing up here. Yeah, I think this is one of those things where it's going to need a little bit more work. But if I give it a reboot, it'll probably work for me. I'm not seeing that last change I made. No matter, I know it's there. It's like I said, this is still under development. I personally think it should still be under beta, but they are calling it an official release for Windows. Now, going back to our slicer settings, you'll notice that we have an icon down at the bottom. If I'm working on my layer height and I'm inside that box, you see how it added this green and it's showing me the dimension arrows? That's telling me what I'm working on. If I go to the width and I'm working in there, there's no icon available. A lot of these do have icons. Our inner outer wall don't. Try some other settings here. So let's go to infill. Here you go. You can see what it's showing you with the infill. So if you're a little confused on what you're actually working on or what the setting affects, I doubt we'll see anything under speed. You'll go ahead and get some visuals. What was that one? Ah, there's the support setting right there. It's showing us supports. So a lot of these do have visual helpers. So not all of them, but a lot of them do. Here's our first layer height. First layer has none. See what strength does with wall loops. There we go. With wall loops, it's showing us our outer walls. Our top layers, it's showing us that. The bottom layers, I expect, will show us the same thing at the bottom. Yep. Infill, we already looked at. But as you can see, there is a lot of good things happening in this version of Creality Print. Again, it's a new program. It's still under development. I think Creality is on to something here. I think till the time they get some of the bugs worked out, that this will compete with just about any other slicer out there. I mean, it's not going to be number one, but I don't think it's going to be dead last. I just think this is going to be my go-to slicer for all my Creality printers right now. I see no reason not to. Once they get all the printers available, give it a go. Let me know what you think about just the overall appearance of this and the new features added. I know there's still work to be done, and I can't stress that enough. If you give it a shot, don't be discouraged if you happen to have a crash. Give it a try, give it an honest shot, and let me know what you think about it in the comments.
I'll tell you what, I really like the direction Creality went with this slicer. It's looking really good. Don't be discouraged if you try it and things don't work as you think they should. Even though the Windows version is considered an official release, Creality is still developing this slicer and pushing updates through. If you like what Creality Print 5.0 has to offer, but you're just not ready to go ahead and upgrade yet, there's nothing wrong with that. Just follow the progress, see how it develops, and when you're ready, give it a go. I think you'll like the results. I want to go ahead and thank PCBWay for sponsoring this video. I have their link posted in the description. Give it a click if you can, it helps the channel grow. I hope you found the information in this video useful. If you did, hit that like button and let me know down in the comments. Smash that bell so you'll be alerted to new content in the future. Live your life one layer at a time, and if you haven't done it yet, please consider subscribing.